Hi, everyone. It's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions. I tell you what, sharing with you today, I am in such a transitional space, personally, spiritually, in life. It's exciting for me to share with you, and it's also uncomfortable because a new version of my reality is starting to click into place and become real. So I'm in this in between, which feels very liminal. And I've talked about liminal space quite a bit, a feeling that your spirit and your soul is moving and has moved somewhere else, but you're still in the day to day of what's on your plate, what's in front of you, and navigating that space. It's tricky, it's different, but it's become enriching and magical, and I feel like for me, and I see it in other people, magic is flowing, synchronicity is flowing in these ways that almost feel not just uncanny, but no way, like, this is too bizarre, this is too wild. I've had things happen recently where it's almost like this immediate, synchronistic, and simultaneous magnetization. So it's not even manifestation. It's one thing goes out and the other comes in immediately to replace it, or something comes in and one thing goes out. So it can be either way, but it's happening in real time, quicker and faster. And that has happened the more that I have trusted and really allowed myself to feel this untethering that is tethering somewhere else. And let me break that down practically in terms of what's been going on with me the past 6 weeks or so. I shared with many of you that we live in Texas, that we were selling our home. We had moved back to Texas. We lived in Belize for 3 years, and we moved back to Texas to come here to take care of my mom, who was terminally ill. We bought a home, we moved her in. We spent the last year of her life, which came with all sorts of rites of passages and pain and suffering and joy and beauty and all the things that you all know that comes with the loss of a loved one, caring for a loved one, whether it's a pet, a parent, a child, a friend. It's just it's a lot and it's heavy. And sometimes we move through those seasons of life, and then as we come out on the other side, we restabilize, we rebuild, we integrate, we heal and grieve while we begin to grow forward. And there was that time and place for that. And for the year prior, Dennis and I knew that we had only come back here temporarily. We had come back for a purpose, a reason, but we were not planning on moving back to the United States. And in fact, before we moved back to take care of my mom, Dennis and I had sold our home in Belize and we were moving to Ecuador. And when I first met Dennis back in 2013, he said to me, "Hey, my long range plan is to move to South America, to move to Ecuador. This is where I want to go when I retire. This is where I want to live for all of these reasons: quality of life, climate, people, cost of living, access to healthcare." It was his long range retirement plan. He said, "Are you open to this? Are you on board? Is this something you'd be open to?" So we took a trip to Ecuador in 2014 together, and we were there almost 2 weeks. We traveled a huge portion of Ecuador, and I had all of these magical experiences leading up to that trip and on that trip, and there was something about that land, that place, that felt very familiar to me, and familiar on a soul level. When you travel somewhere or go somewhere and you're like, I'm at home here. I'm meant to be here. This is my place." That's how Ecuador felt. And everything about Ecuador on paper or logistically for me, it didn't really track, but something about that land and those people and the places we traveled, it felt familiar. The land did, and the topography. And it's one of those places that's unassuming. It's not like we went to England or we're moving to Scotland or it's not a place that normally people just pick out on a map. This is where we're going. But he had already chosen that place, and I it's the path. His path was really part of my path, and it directed me there. So flash forward to us selling our home in Belize. We were going to move to Ecuador at that point in time. And the reason we didn't move to Ecuador prior to that is there was an earthquake in 2016 that was almost an 8 on the Richter scale, and it killed over 1,000 people. It devastated the country, not only like roads, infrastructures, and they don't have the resources to rebuild things like that as effectively and efficiently as we do in the United States. So the rebuilding in Ecuador, that's what diverted us to Belize. And Belize came together organically. And we knew that Belize was probably not our forever place, but it got us outside of the United States and in that expansive mode of living in a different country, a different lifestyle. And we were very at home there, but we knew that it probably wasn't our place. So we sold our home in Belize and we were moving to Ecuador from Belize. And then my mom's terminal illness really took a turn, and I recognized that being that far away, I needed to physically be with her to care for her, and it's what the call in my soul was at that time. And so we made the decision to move back to Texas, and we did all of those things. We moved back and we were here and went through that phase. Well, if you remember back, I shared with you that we were moving to Mexico. Our house was on the market and we were moving to Mexico. And really, the genesis of that is we have a friend that lives down in Mexico in south of Tulum, and that's where we were moving. And it made sense, especially because we could get our dogs down there with ease. We can drive down to Mexico. We can literally drive the dogs down. We can get them there safely. We can also move some furniture and some things. So logistically, it made sense. And we love that area of Mexico. We would certainly flourish there, feel comfortable, all the things. But it was really funny. I guess it was probably 4 months ago or so. I was with a friend, and she's an intuitive, and we were talking about the move and that this was all falling into place, and we had made the decision to put the house on the market and really set everything into motion. And she had a pendulum, and I said, "Let's get your pendulum out and ask if I'm moving to Mexico." And the reason I was having her do it, because when I use a pendulum, I can't trust it. And the reason for that is if I use a pendulum on myself, I can't trust it because it just entrains with what I want in my energy field a lot of the times. Like if I say, is this where I'm going? It's really responding to what Amanda wants to hear. So a pendulum does not work for myself. I have to have, if somebody's going to use a pendulum, I need them to use it to ask the questions and their energy field to guide and direct it, because mine entrains too much with what my human will wants to hear versus the higher divine will. So she gets the pendulum out and we ask the question, is Amanda moving to Mexico? And the pendulum said yes. And I said, let's ask another question. Is Amanda moving to Mexico in line with her highest path? And the pendulum said, maybe. Like it didn't say yes, it didn't say no. And she said, what do you think about this? And I said, I think the pendulum's right. Because are we moving to Mexico? Have we made this plan? Yep, most likely. Like everything is set in motion, but is it aligned with the highest path? I don't think it is. I think something else is materializing, but I can't quite see it yet. And I couldn't, but I knew that this would be a great place. It would make sense. It was all coming together in this fluid way, but something else was forming in the field. And so I just let it be there in the field. Like, we're going to keep moving forward and start to reorient ourselves, liquidate all of the logistics that come with moving to a foreign country, visas and documentation and money and bank accounts because there's a lot that comes with that. And we're just going to keep moving forward. Well, probably about 6 or 7 weeks ago, it was right. I know when it was actually. It was right on the Cancer summer solstice. And there was a new moon right after the solstice. So it was right when the sun was moving into Cancer and the solstice had come. And our house had been on the market. We had listed it ourselves because we thought we'll list it ourselves. If it doesn't move, then we'll get a realtor and we'll go from there. But the house wasn't moving, and Dennis and I said, "You know what? Let's get a realtor. Let's get somebody in here. Let's figure out what needs to happen because our priority is to be out of here before the fall. Like, that's it. Like, we don't wanna be here through the fall. We need to figure it out. We need some help. Let's get somebody in." So we had made that decision, but I woke up in the middle of the night, and I realized, and this is where it starts to get wild. I realized that in this home that was full of a lot of energy. I took care of my mom here. My mom peacefully passed away in this home. A year later, her dog passed away. And then a few months after that, we put my 17-year-old Labrador Tex to sleep here around Easter. So I told Dennis, I sat up in the middle of the night and I go, oh my gosh, like the spirits are keeping us here and not out of any maliciousness, but all of their spirits are so present in this space and in this home. I felt them and they were keeping us here because they were nurturing us and they wanted to take care of us and they wanted us in this space. And I know that may sound way outside the box, but I got this knowing and I told Dennis, I said, Dennis, I have to have a talk with these folks. I've got to talk to Tex and Obi and mom because I know they love me and they want to care for us here, but they are keeping us here. Something is keeping us here. And it's, even though we're moving and we're going to Mexico, like it's keeping my energy in a really succinct space because it's this misguided nurture and safety and like safety blanket. And some really weird things had happened when people came to look at the house. Like the feedback from some of the people that had looked at the house, there was some paranormal activity, let's say, in the house that had happened that was unexplainable. And I was like, yeah, they're sabotaging all the people that are looking at the house because everybody's like, this house is so great. It should sell really easily, even though the market is saturated and, all of these other things going on, but I kept getting really strange feedback, and I was like, "Oh, the spirits, they're messing with things," and I had cleansed and cleared the house, done all my things, blessed it, set my intention, changed the address, numerology. I did all my tricks, right? All the things that I know magically, intentionally, spiritually, consciously that really set things into motion. So I get up on the solstice and I did a whole cleansing ritual. And of course, it's the Cancer solstice and Cancer new moon, which is about hearth and home and ultimately our happiness, our sense of safety, security. And I said, this is just a divinely timed thing. And I had a real time talk with the spirits. And I said, hey, y'all, I love you. The time we have spent here has been so invaluable in terms of my growth, my grief, my healing, my shifts, my clarity, the necessity of walking through suffering and messiness and pain and alchemizing it. And I mean, I just had real time talk with them and I did a whole ritual out in our backyard. And if I told you about it, y'all would just be like, wow, she is out there on another plane. I mean, I had some of my mom's ashes and Texas ashes and Obi's ashes and crystals and water and salt. And I mean, I had this whole cleansing ritual the morning of the solstice. And on the new moon, I asked their spirits, I said, hey, listen, it is time for y'all to let us go. Like we are supposed to be somewhere else and you get to come with us. You are always in here in my heart and guiding and directing me as these beautiful angels and guides on the other side. But our time here is up and we are ready for the doors and logistics to open clearly. And so I do this ritual. I go about my day. It was on a Saturday morning, and I went to my Pilates and I did my Saturday routine. And I kid you not, that evening, I was sitting in our living room, and all of a sudden I said, "Why are we moving?" In my mind's eye and in my heart, clearly, it was like clairaudience. There was a voice in my head, and not the schizophrenic kind, like a true voice, an impression deep down in my soul that said, "Amanda, why are you moving to Mexico when you're supposed to be in Ecuador? That's where you've been meant to go, and the time is right." And it was clear and true and poignant. And I took a deep breath and I thought, okay, I need to talk to Dennis, my husband. And I gently walked up to him and he was reading. And I said, "Dennis," I said, I need to share something with you. And I said, "This comes with no pressure, no decision making. It's just a gentle ask, a gentle suggestion." I said, "Why are we moving to Mexico? Don't you want to just move to Ecuador?" And I said, "I don't need an answer. I'm just putting it out there. And if it doesn't feel right or aligned, I hear you, but I would be remiss not to share this, to state this, to say it." And to say it, it was so gentle. It wasn't like, "Why are we doing this?" or "Should we do this?" or "What do you think about doing this?" There was no impact with it. It was just pure tone, pure frequency, pure resonance. And he just kind of stared at me and smiled and said, okay." And then I walked away and went about my day. And the next morning, he said, "Let's talk about that." And the biggest barrier for us mentally and logistically was our dogs. Because Mexico, I shared with you, we can just drive, but to Ecuador, it requires a flight. And we have 2 dogs that will not fit in the cabin, and they are not legitimate service dogs. So there's no way to finagle them in the cabin of an airplane. It means a pet transport flight because I was not going to put the dogs in cargo on a commercial flight. I wanted to get them there safely. And of course, with that comes dollar signs. So, of course, it's like the barrier was, can we afford this? And can we get them there safely? And it's really, can we get them there safely the way we want to? And can we afford this? Oh my gosh, no, we can't. It's too much. We can't spend that money. This is going to be too difficult, too hard. That had been the barrier for both of us, even though it was unspoken. And I kid you not, that was over the weekend. By Wednesday, we had an offer on the house. And the people wanted to close in early September, so it was almost a 2-month close date because they are moving from out of state, closing on their own house at the end of August. They wanna get their children down here for the school year, logistics, and so a 2-month close date is a long time, and there a lot can fall through, and it was contingent on the close of their house that had already sold that had a close date at the end of August. So everything said, like, great, this gives us 2 months to figure out the logistics, to figure out the planning and what needs to happen, and also this means really liquidating our house, because we have moved when we moved to Belize, we brought a shipping container down there, and that's an expense in and of itself, and also stuff gets rattled and messed up. It's like, if we're gonna make this move, we're taking our clothes, the necessities that we need, and the dogs, and we are liquidating, leaving behind the things, the attachment to stuff, no storage unit. I mean, really, really, it meant a massive shift in perspective and planning, and Dennis was on board. 3 days later, we had an offer on the house and a set close date of 2 months later. And since that time, everything has logistically fallen into place. And because of this energy, especially the pets are all set to go. We have this amazing company that's going to move them, and the plan is in place, and we're finalizing their flight date, which means we can finalize our flight date. So it's all becoming very real right now and down to the wire. We have people coming over tonight to buy furniture and things, a huge group of people we know that need beds and TVs and desks. And so we are selling all of our furniture. And I tell you what, I love the furniture in this house. This is the first home in which I had a budget to decorate and I got to do it. And I put all of my heart and soul into it. So at first, the idea of letting it go or not recouping the financial amount that I invested in it with all my old financial fear, at first that scared me to death. And how am I going to do it? And then it started to get easier because my spirit has been in Ecuador since that moment it came in. And the moment I released the spirits and asked them to come with us where we were supposed to go and not keep us here, it was like as if by divine coherence and orchestration, everything has fallen into place. And when I tell you things that shouldn't happen in the time frame, like logically, that they would happen are happening, I called I had to get a new birth certificate because my birth certificate is down in Belize and we can't get it back. So I had to get a new one. And about 3 weeks ago, I put in my order for the birth certificate and I hadn't gotten any follow up information from them. And last week, I called them to see what the status was because I need my birth certificate for our residency and and other things that we get to qualify down there for. But I called the woman and she said, "Oh, your birth certificate is on day 16. It's on day 16. I see it. It's here. It's on order. When it gets to day 25, they will review it and you should have it within a week of that." And so I was doing the math and I realized, okay, that means I'm going to have it right down to the wire. Hopefully I'll get it the last week of August just before we leave. But I'm like, okay, got it. It's on day 16. Day 25 is when something happens. And that was on a Monday, day 16. On Wednesday, the FedEx man showed up with my new birth certificate. And this is one example of a multitude of things. We sold my car in a day, cash money, closed out the loan account and cash money. And the cash money that we walked away with from my vehicle is like the amount that it is costing the dogs to get the dogs down there. Yesterday, literally, I got a Venmo in my account because the new homeowners are gonna buy our refrigerator, and I saw this Venmo come in, and I was like, "Wow, oh my gosh, okay, what is this for?" And Dennis said, "Oh, it's for the refrigerator." And I said, "Great." And 2 hours later, he says, "Hey, I need you to Venmo this for the deposit for the pets." I kid you not, it was the same amount that was Venmoed in that I need to Venmo out for the deposit for the pet flight. And this is multiple times this has happened where the amount of money will come in and it's exactly the amount. I mean, like close to on the nose, the amount that it cost for fill in the blank. It's like the energy of money and the currency is flowing. And this liminal space that I'm referring to, and for me, I am making a huge life transition, a big geographical change and move, but for you, it could be that your identity is shifting. It doesn't have to be about physical location. It could be that you're changing jobs, ending a relationship, stepping into a new chapter of your identity, really tapping into your inner truth. And you still have the logistics, the day to day to respond to and engage with, but your spirit, your soul is already seeding and taking root in a different space. So it's like multi-location consciousness. Your soul is in one place and your body is in another. And what it requires is energetic closure, how you know when a chapter is ending and what action and interaction you need to take. And also logistical sacredness of packing and selling and paperwork or finishing out a project or having difficult conversations with people, making that sacred. And what I have been doing over the past couple of months is making everything sacred, whether it is packing and going through mementos and pictures and things that I have physical attachment to, and actually allowing my body to emotionally or mentally grieve and process and let go. Or it is, again, conversations, relationships, making everything sacred, even if it's paperwork. And like the birth certificate, for example, I just called to find out and wasn't attached, and I trust that it's all gonna happen in divine timing, and it's like when I trust that truly and deeply without attachment, boom, it happens as if by magic or faster than I can practically or logistically calculate. Like, it almost seems unfathomable, the amount of things that have happened without force, but with this calling in. And so questions that you might want to reflect on wherever you are in your journey, because I know that many of you are feeling like your soul is somewhere else, but your body is either stuck in or in the groundhog day or in the seemingly immovable now with all the logistics and linear time. It's asking yourself, where is your spirit already living, but your body hasn't arrived there yet? And giving yourself the space to travel energetically somewhere, to see yourself somewhere, to be there, to know it as true, while you trust that you can easily, organically, gently close out, breathe, finish up, tie up loose ends without stress, pressure, or fear. And that is what has been detoxing from my field is there's no fear, there's pure positive potential. And when any kind of fear or resistance creeps in, I'm acutely aware of it, and I choose to say, "No, this is already set in stone. It is already lined out." So I've asked myself, when I'm packing, am I just packing up things or am I packing up emotional stuff? Am I letting go of emotional things, not just the physical packing, but unpacking and saying goodbye to emotional things? And I'll give you an example of that. I've had to go through tons of family pictures and documents and things that my mom had, and my mom was not the best at organizing and having scrapbooks or pictures and things. So it's just bins of pictures and stuff and documentation and cards and sweet, sweet things and memories and heavy things too. I mean, all of it combined. So I started doing it one box at a time because about 30 minutes in every time, of course, I would be feeling things emotionally, whether it was nostalgia and memory or it was heavy or confusing. Do I let go of this? Do I let go of these letters to my grandparents? I found these sweet letters that I used to write to my grandparents when I was in college, and there were so many of them. And I kept those. Like, those, I was like, "I want these." Like, I wrote my grandparents letters, and I told them how I was doing and how school was, and I didn't remember that I did that, and they were precious, and I had letters from my grandmother, but going through those things, but every time I would sit down and go through a box, and still it's happening, I couldn't quite mentally or emotionally process, and it would get trapped in my thoracic spine, right under my rib cage. My back would start hurting, and it wasn't because of where I was sitting or my posture. Like, I would just start having horrific pain in my back, and my physical body was really that's where it was holding on to memories and pain and attachment and need for physical things to define or create some kind of connection or safety. And so every time I would, like, start feeling that pain, I would stop and I would put everything down and I would either stretch or go get something to eat or take a bath. Like, I would literally I've been giving myself that space to allow the physical body to integrate. And then the next day, I would go back and work on a bin or finish a bin or box or clean out another thing. And immediately when my back starts hurting, I stop and I let my physical body integrate. And I think for me, that has been it's one of those things I'm gonna take with me now. I've become so acutely aware of how magnificent and intelligent my physical body is, and I've been honoring it in those waves where I do something physical, and if my body is holding the pressure, the pain, the grief, the emotions, then I walk away and I allow my body to regenerate and process and physically move through it before I go back, or I don't push myself beyond limits. "Oh, let me just work for another hour. Let me get these 4 more boxes done," And every time I seem to honor that, something happens quicker, easier, faster. And the other thing is just these wild synchronicities, and especially with resources and money and timelines. That's where I've been seeing it is like income will come in and it will replace the cost of fill in the blank. I mean, almost to the letter. So looking at synchronicities that are coming up for you too, and how the ones that happen in almost real time, that's where I want you to pay attention is real time synchronicities guiding and directing you that feel uncanny. Like almost, gosh, if I told anybody this, they'd think I was making it up or nuts. That kind of stuff. And and I have really been very willing to allow myself to let go of things that I know do not need to go with me as I cross this threshold. And that's where the discernment and the truth has come in. And some of that lives in the land of relationships. It lives in the land of the way I work and do my business, my professional relationship with my work and myself, and even this podcast, changing up my energy field to really listen to where I am and my truth in any given moment and following the direction of ease and flow, removing fear, removing resistance, removing force, and it feels like this sacred dance. And am I ready for it to be mid-September and us be in Ecuador? Would I just love it if I could quantum jump over there to that time and be done with the packing and the logistics and also the dog transport and getting them on a plane? Because I know that I'm going to have feelings around that. I trust that they are going to be there safely. They're already there in my mind's eye, but I'm human and it's going to be sensitive and I will probably cry as I hand them to the person that is going to travel with them and go, but that's okay. But I know that they're gonna be there, and our flights aren't secured yet. I don't know that yet, but it's coming, but I am choosing not to live in stress, fear, and pressure. Where is stress, fear, and pressure coming up for you, and how does it relate to what is evolving and where the direction in which your soul is going, your future self? If you could talk to your future self right now, the most luminous version of you, whether it's 3 months in the future, 6 months in the future, whatever feels believable to you, where can you have those dialogues that really allow your physical body and physical responsibility and logistics to become synchronistic, fluid, easier? The pieces that fall into place as if by magic. That's the liminal space. And this energy, especially between August 2025 and the end of February of 2026, it is very liminal. It is very much like an imprinting, an energetic conditioning that is preparing, calling in. So I even know that when we get to Ecuador, it's still going to be an imprinting and a seeding time while I'll geographically be where my soul feels that it is and I can join it. I'm still going to be orienting and letting go of and shedding and changing, even though I've already physically let go of things physically and then moved. There's still energetic conditioning in our field in this 6 months. And when we enter into eclipse season in September, it's a pretty wild ride for the 6 months following. And it is, I think, probably the most energetically and fundamentally optimal space that is going to feel very liminal and very in between, but it is where the seed points of new life begin for any and all of us. So, getting clear right now in where your soul is going, where it may be existing already, and what is needing to be transformed, closed out, tied up in a bow, finished out. That is the space that we are in. So I encourage you to really reflect in where you are today, what's changing for you, being able not only to bloom where you're planted, but find your future in your now, finding the magic in the now so you are more quickly and clearly sending a signal to the direction in which you're going. And it's a beautiful time to imprint that, to trust it, to believe it. And when the old dogma or rhetoric comes up in your mind's eye, if I can't do this, it's going to be too hard, it's going to be too much, I don't have the money for it, how could this happen? I'm never going to. When that rhetoric comes up as quickly, and I truly mean quickly, as you can shift it and say, I don't need to know that stuff. It's as I am believing as if, I live as if all of this has already happened and it's coming in quickly and really at a pace where I am not only co-creating with my higher self, I am fusing that energy together. And a couple of podcasts ago, I was talking about being both the architect and the architecture. And this is the more practical way of me communicating to you what I feel that I've been doing. I am literally designing and I am the design at the same time. I am the roadmap and I am the topography. I am the weaver and I am the web. I had a client last week and this came up in our session and she said, I just had this vision. Like I am a weaver. And I said, but you're also the web. And I thought, I just was talking about on the podcast being the architect and the architecture. And she reflected back, I am the weaver and the web. And that's the space. And that's sixth dimensional energy. It is up in this divine architecture where you are casting and designing in a very multidimensional space where you don't know exactly what you're doing, but you are designing and seeing something as true while you are also the building that you are designing. And think of your future self that way. And I know that's mystical and esoteric, but think about the things that are going on in your life where you are going through a change, a transformation. The future you is coming into your mind's eye intuitively, clearly, but you know that you are also living in this reality now. How can you be the architect and the architecture, the weaver and the web, the map and the topography, and trusting that? And you've got to create your own magic because it's same but different for all of us. Finding your multi-location consciousness, the energetic and logistical closure you need, but finding the sacred and the spiritual in all of it, the expanded consciousness. And the biggest temperature gauge I have is if it comes together easily, as if by magic, too good to be true, but it happens, then I'm on the path. And every time that happens, it's like a little bit more of the fear is chiseled away, the old way of doing and being that requires practicality, accomplishment, structure, form. And it's not that I don't show up and meet timelines and agendas, but I follow these breadcrumbs of my soul while I feel that I am designing and I am the design simultaneously. So see what's coming up for you because this seed point, especially as we move into eclipse season, it will be rapidly manifesting between now and the spring of 2026. It is a 6-month period of seeding and following through in terms of your highest dreams, desires, and designs, which also means the polarity of all of your fear and pain, maybe old traumas, may reappear for you to potentially respond differently, to change your outcome, and to believe it, to believe in your magic, your sovereignty, your consciousness, because the consciousness on this planet is drastically shifting. The resonance, the frequencies, the solar flares, the Schumann resonance. There is drastic stuff happening physically, geographically, geopolitically in the months ahead that feels like it may become more acute, more immediate. So play within your own field and make your own immediacy your soul's future, the direction in which you are going. Take care, everyone. Be well.